Good morning. I'll call the meeting of the National Board of Assessors to order at 9 a.m. on Thursday, February 17th, 2022. Let the record show that present from the board are Robert Early. Joining us remotely is Paul Bergeron, and I myself, Daniel Hansberry, am here. And due to the fact that Mr. Bergeron has joined us remotely, all votes will be roll call votes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting minutes from the board meeting held on Thursday, February 23rd, 2022, accept them and place them on file? That would be the public meeting minutes.
February 3rd.
Right, February 3rd, 2022.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, are there any errors or corrections? Okay, seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes, motion is adopted. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the non-public meeting minutes from the board meeting of Thursday, February 3rd, 2022, accept them and place them on file?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, are there any errors or corrections? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes, motion is adopted. Okay, there are no communications. Mr. Vincent, do you have any update or any comments for us this morning?
No, I don't.
Okay, at this time I will recognize Jennifer Zins under new business, who has solar exemptions and veterans credits to present to us. Good morning, Ms. Zins.
Good morning, Board. How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So I am presenting veterans credits, the standard veterans credits, a list of those, a list of the disabled veterans credits for approval, and a list of all veterans credits with approval. In addition, there are two for the veterans/disabled veterans credit with a recommendation of denial based on, and there is reasons, and then the solar exemption list.
Okay. So for the standard veterans credits, can you just define those or explain what that is, please?
Yes, so that is a $500 credit that comes off the tax bill, $250 off each bill. You have to have 90-plus days of active duty. During certain conflict times, there is a guideline of if there's medals that are required during that conflict time. If not, the House passed in 2017, I think, that each municipality could adopt the all veterans credit, which allowed a veteran that had active 90-plus days of active duty that didn't necessarily have the correct medal in that conflict time. That way, then they were still allowed to receive a veterans credit. It's just not the same as a standard veterans credit. Standard is it complies with everything that the DRA has written out for us.
Thank you. Any questions?
Nope.
Any questions, Mr. Bergeron?
No. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the veterans credit standard as presented per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Okay, Ms. Zins?
Okay, and that is it?
Okay, so the disabled credits are next, correct?
Yes.
All right. And I can remember years ago, it may have changed, but they used to rate you as like a percentage of your disability, you know, like you were 20%
It's
disabled, 10%
not necessarily a
disabled.
percentage anymore. The way that the VA is doing the letters, you could be 80% and considered totally and permanently. So you had to look at specific questions on their summary of benefit letter that they get on an annual basis, and it's after they get evaluated. And the first question is, are you disabled due to service connection? And it must be answered yes. And then the fifth question is, are you considered totally and permanently disabled due to service connection? And it must be answered yes as well. So that's what meets that line. But we are seeing there are some places there are some veterans that are 70% and they're being considered totally and permanently disabled.
And the value of the disabled veterans credit?
$2,000, so it's $1,000 off each bill. And if you're a standard veteran, you're receiving a standard veterans credit, you are allowed to also receive the disabled veterans credit.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the disabled veterans credit as presented per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. And then the all veterans credit, could you define that for us too, please?
Okay, so the all veterans is as well, it's $500 off the tax bill, so $250 off each tax bill. But once again, they have to comply with and meet the 90 days of active duty. However, if they don't have a certain medal during that conflict time, then they're not standard, it would be considered all veterans. And it's one that was just put into a vote with the House back in, we think, 2017.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Zins?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the all veterans credit as presented per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Bergeron. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. And then, is there a motion to deny the disabled veterans credits as presented with the reasons attached per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Ms. Zins?
Okay, and the next one are the solar exemption.
And then the value of that varies, correct?
Yes,
And
yes.
can you explain that, please?
I can, but I think Rick or Greg will explain with regards to the assessing portion of it, but these are ones that are being picked up as well. So what we typically ask for is we ask for the contract and the invoice. In addition to that, one of the assessors will go out and they'll do an evaluation and an inspection and pick it up. And it's also based on a percentage, based on the equalization ratio, is that correct?
No. So, the solar exemption, as you said, the amount can vary because it depends on the size of the system that's installed on the property. So a smaller house would have a smaller system, obviously, than a larger house. So the value will vary depending on the size of that system. And then that value is exempted from taxes. So you have to come up with a value for that system and then exempt it.
Further questions for Ms. Zins or Mr. Vincent? Okay, is there a motion to approve the solar exemption as presented per the attached list?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, at this time, I will recognize Mr. Turgis, who has some in-house corrections to present to the board.
Morning, Board.
Morning, Mr. Turgis, how are you?
Doing well yourself?
Fine, thank you.
So the first in-house correction I have for you is the property at 364 Amherst Street. It is a data correction regarding drive-up window that was incorrectly listed.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions.
Go right ahead.
Greg, this is an in-house correction, how do we happen to find this?
The taxpayer called and inquired why his assessment went up so much. In reviewing it, we determined that
Have we
the
looked at?
drive-up window was listed incorrectly.
I know we have two this morning, have we looked at other?
Yes, we've looked at all of them, we've run the reports, and these were the two that got billed for 2021 incorrectly.
Okay.
And we have corrected them going forward. This is to correct them for 2021.
Yeah, it was a big amount. How did that happen, do you know?
They were incorrectly listed as the square footage instead of just one.
One
and-
per, yeah,
Right,
okay.
and that's been corrected.
And no other questions?
Any further questions for Mr. Turgis? Is there a motion to approve the in-house correction for the property located at 364 Amherst Street?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis?
The second one I have is 260 Amherst Street, and it's the same thing.
And questions for Mr. Turgis on 260 Amherst Street?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Right. Okay, is there a motion to approve the in-house correction for the property located at 260 Amherst Street?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis?
The next property I have is 16 Saturn Lane. This is an abandoned, uninhabitable manufactured housing that the park has since removed and replaced with a new one.
Any questions for Mr. Turgis?
Nope.
Okay, is there a motion
No.
to approve the in-house correction for the property located at 16 Saturn Lane?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis?
The next property I have is 8 Stanwood Drive, and this is also the same. Home was abandoned, and park management has removed it and are in the process of replacing it with a new home.
Questions for Mr. Turgis? Okay.
None.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the in-house correction for the property located at 8 Stanwood Drive?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis?
The next property is 57 to 59 Marshall Street. This property is owned by a charitable organization who did file their A9 timely. In research, we discovered that it was never placed on the list of charitable exemptions and therefore did not receive their exemption for 2021. So this is to correct that.
And is this subsidized housing? Is that what it's used for?
This is, hold on one second. It is. They're working with transition, people in transition, and their rent is accordingly to their income, so forth and so on, depending on the people.
All right. Further questions for Mr. Turgis?
Mr. Chairman, so it was approved by us previously, but just...
It was not.
Okay.
It was not on the list. You approved the list. We researched it and double-checked everything and went back through the meetings and the minutes, and it was never put on the list. It should have been, but it was not.
Okay.
So was it a one-time oversight, or is it something that's been going on?
It was a one-time oversight. They had recently purchased the property, and it was just never added to the
Oh,
list.
okay. All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
No.
Is there a motion to approve the in-house correction for the property located at 57 to 59 Marshall Street?
So moved.
Is there a second? Did you want to second that, Mr. Bergeron?
Yes, I did. Sorry, I didn't speak up loud enough.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we can hear you now. That's good. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Accepting
Yes.
the final.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is
And then
adopted.
accepting.
Mr. Turgis?
The next property I have is 12 Auburn Street, and this is the same situation, charitable organization. They had recently purchased the property, and again, through research, it was not put on the charitable list for 2021. They did not receive their appropriate exemption, so this is to correct that.
And once again, this is being
Yeah.
subsidized housing?
Subsidized housing, and I believe they have an office or two in that building, which is to support the whole thing. This welcoming light is actually part of Harbor Homes.
Okay. Further questions for Mr. Turgis?
No.
Is there a motion to approve the in-house correction for the property located at 12 Auburn Street?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Mr. Turgis?
The next property I have is 16 Loch Ness Drive. First, I would ask the board to accept the late filing for the prorated assessment of damaged buildings due to accident, mistake, or misfortune.
So the misfortune was
The fire.
the fire.
The fire, and in this particular case, the woman ended up in the hospital for a little while.
Sorry to hear that. Okay, is there a motion to approve the late filing for proration of taxes for damaged buildings
So
due
moved.
to accident, mistake, or misfortune for the property located at 16 Loch Ness Drive?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Mr. Turgis?
The next thing I have is the actual proration for the fire damaged building. It does meet all the criteria. The property was heavily damaged by fire on November 26th, and it's a prorated amount till March 31st of the following year, being the tax year, April 1st.
All right, questions for Mr. Turgis? Is there a motion to approve the prorated assessment for the property located at 16 Loch Ness Drive?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Motion is adopted. Does that conclude your report, Mr.
That does conclude my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, we have reached the segment of the meeting. No, let's see, we have no unfinished business. So we've reached the segment of the meeting for public comment. I would remind members of the public that there is a 5-minute limit on comment per person, and we ask you to adhere to generally accepted standards of conduct. I don't see anybody from the public in the audience. Is there anybody joining us remotely, Ms. Jennings?
No, there isn't, Mr. Hansberry.
There isn't. Okay, all right. Are there any comments by board members?
No?
No comments by board members, all right.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
may, I'm not sure, Mr. Bergeron, did you note for the record the reason for your remote attendance?
I did not. The House is in session today, so I am in Manchester right now, and there is a break in activity, so I am participating remotely in the parking garage, and there is no one in the vehicle with me at the present time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure we were on the record.
Thank you, Attorney
All right.
Leonard, I appreciate that. COVID has certainly changed things, and meeting remotely has changed things. Okay. All right, so, I just put this in the wrong spot.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, yes.
I notice we have some,
I think we need to do that in non-public because of the nature of it. Is that what we're going to say?
do we?
To go through the non-public minutes?
That-
Yes.
the-
Yeah.
The old ones?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion to go into non-public for 2 reasons? First, to discuss matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to include any application for assistance or tax abatement a waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parenthetical C. Second, under 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parenthetical L, for the consideration of legal advice provided by legal counsel, either in writing or orally to one or more members of the public body, even where legal counsel is not present.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I will call the roll. Mr. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Hansberry, yes. Let the record show that we have entered non-public session at 9:20 a.m.
I will confirm we're off the air.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Attorney Leonard, you have a